Next at 10, parts of our state are healing.
Nicole is gone, but the damage left behind is heartbreaking.
I mean, this is our home and this is where we live.
Tonight, our crews are in the thick of the damaged areas.
And we are here with you and your family as the rebuilding begins. Fox 35 News at 10 is just moments away. Tonight on Fox 35 News, homes swallowed by the ocean, others on the brink of collapse. Nicole is passed, but the threat isn't totally gone.
And Fox 35 is surveying the damage after the storm. People are picking up the pieces and even digging out their cars.
And Nicole is now just a tropical depression, but unfortunately the impacts are still being felt. I'll show you when finally the system will make an exit for good.
And tonight we are live along the coast once again as a king high tide just passed, which could lead to even more damage tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Brown.
Good evening. I'm Luann Sorrell. Fox 35 has live team coverage tonight from some of the hardest hit areas. Let's get right out to Fox 35's Valerie Boy. She is live for us tonight in Wilbur by the Sea. Valerie, good evening. Are the high tides out there making matters even worse tonight?
Hey there, Luann. Well, those high tides are certainly a big concern because, you know, the rough surf, it could keep eating away at the bottoms of those homes. Take a look behind me. This home collapsed. That was someone's bedroom and someone's living room. Neighbors tell me the owner had just finished renovating his house around 6 months ago, so it's just heartbreaking. Now, according to Volusia County officials, 49 beachfront buildings, including 24 hotels and condos, have been compromised and deemed unsafe. 25 of them are in Wilbur by the Sea. Thousands of residents are also out of power. It's been so difficult for those who live here.
It's a big part of our life. You know, we spent our life building what we built in order to be able to have this place. You know, we want to keep it. I want to keep it. All my memories are here. It's frustrating, but I have faith that, you know, we're going to be able to do something appropriate and that, you know, the right thing will happen.
He hopes it will be a new way to rebuild. Of course, the county says structural engineers will be out here to inspect the homes and try to help, but of course it's going to take time as well as patience. Live in Wilbur by the Sea, Valerie Boy, Fox 35 News.
Valerie, thank you. Our live team coverage continues now in Volusia County.
And Fox 35's Marie Ettinger is live in Pirates Cove tonight. Marie, police had to evacuate even more buildings this evening, we hear.
They did, and there were actually just deputies on scene here checking things out, making sure that there's nobody wandering around. This behind me is Pirates Cove. It's a condominium and hotel building, and it is now condemned. Officials aren't sure whether it's going to remain standing, and that's because of waves like this. You can see them crashing in right after high tide, and that is degrading the ground underneath the building. Could make things worse. This building was fine Friday morning after the worst of the storm had already moved through. But around 9 a.m.
all of a sudden I see like the building right next to the swimming pool collapse in just a blink of an eye.
Rita Davies lives in the building right next door.
It was unbelievable. It was just very scary.
The Volusia County Sheriff's Office has a curfew in place because it isn't confident the rest of this building will stay stable. There are many others at risk too.
Our chief building official declared approximately 15 more high-rises unsafe. That started evacuations of several hundred people.
People in the town are heartbroken and scared. They're terrified about what could happen in the coming days and what the road to recovery will look like.
Just awful, you know. I was born and raised here in Daytona. I've been here 47 years and never seen anything like this. It's just a shame.
Others are considering whether they want to stay at all.
I have my stuff in the car just in case if we have to go down, we just leave right away.
I mentioned that road to recovery. I'll be talking a lot more about what that will take tonight at 10:45. Live in Daytona Beach Shores, Marie Ettinger, Fox 35 News.
Thanks, Marie. And of course, Volusia County wasn't the only place where erosion is posing a big threat to the community. Our live team coverage continues in Flagler County, where Fox 35's Connor Hansen is there tonight. So, Connor, just like after the 26 Hurricane Matthew, parts of A1A have collapsed into the ocean again.
That's right, John, and it's really shocking to see. I'm actually standing on the edge of what was the northbound lane of A1A, and when you take a look behind me, you can see about 25 yards worth of the street completely gone into the ocean. You can see where these waves have washed away sand and rocks all the way up to this grassy median. That's the median of the highway. To give you an idea, about half of it in this chunk is gone. Now, these waves are washing up. You can see where the wet sand meets the dry sand. That's how high these waves are still coming. Gives you an idea of how much trouble there still could be for the erosion on this street. Even people who have lived here on the beach for a long time say this is some of the worst erosion they've ever seen. Take a look at this. We spoke to a woman who lives right along A1A across from the beach. Her home was being hit so hard by wind, water, and sand that paint actually flew off the walls. You could see some of it in piles out front. She was shocked to see how much power the storm produced, especially to the highway right in front of her home. Crews worked all day to fill in the gaps all along this stretch in Flagler Beach, hoping to have a drivable sand road by the end of the week.
It is very surprising because I didn't think it was a Category 1. I didn't think could cause this much erosion, especially it coming so close to the road, being that my property is right here on A1A.
And just a few blocks from here, people dealing with flooding from the intercoastal getting inside their homes. Coming up tonight at 11, we'll show you exactly what some of those people are going through right now. Reporting live in Flagler Beach, Connor Hansen, Fox 35 News.
Thanks a lot, Connor. Now time to find out what's happening next. And Fox 35 storm team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins us here.
Brooks, there was a very high tide tonight.
Yeah, this was hopefully going to be the last big tide, and indeed it will be, because it was that mix of storm surge, the astronomically high tide, which we'll talk more about coming up, and also the last of the waves rolling in behind the system. That happened about 10 minutes after 9. Nicole is now a tropical depression, so from here on out, conditions should generally be improving at the beaches, although the water will look very stirred up and very angry through tomorrow morning before things get a little bit better. Right now, Nicole is working inland. It's heading into the Alabama-Georgia border. It is losing its characteristics, and it's about to sort of become one with an approaching front. That said, we still have some impacts here with some breezy conditions, at times windy. The system will be working northward, and eventually by Friday evening, this is tomorrow evening, it'll pretty much lose its tropical characteristics, being fully absorbed by an approaching front, and bring some heavy rain to the northeast, even a tornado threat. So Nicole as an entity is about to meet its end, but its legacy will continue with all the damage along the beaches. Winds right now gusting at 30 miles an hour in Daytona Beach, about 29 miles an hour Kissimmee, 34 miles an hour in Leesburg. So there's still some gusts out there. If you're doing any late night driving, maybe you got a shift to cover later tonight and you're heading out there on the highway, you may feel your car buffeting around. And hopefully you got power, because a lot of folks down in Brevard County still do not. 36,000 without power. Power outages numbering in the thousands once you get inland, but still, at least those are improving a little bit. And we've got some rain. This stuff is mostly across north central Florida, but there are a couple of isolated bands of some showers that don't look like much on radar. But because they're tropical, they're actually really heavy. It's kind of weird to describe, but if you can picture the heaviest drizzle you've ever seen, where it makes your wipers on high and soaks the roads, that's what we're looking at right now in the Claremont area. And so you may catch that as you're driving around. We're going to talk about your weekend forecast coming up, life after Hurricane Nicole, and talk more about these king tides. What is a king tide, and why does it matter for you, guys?
All right, thanks a lot, Brooks. And we also have an update from Orlando International Airport. They tell us that flights are arriving once again, but no flights are departing at this point. But that's coming very soon. The airport says it is anticipating that things will get back to normal tomorrow. Officials still cleaning up while also inspecting the buildings, the runways, and even the jet bridges. If you are planning to go to the airport this weekend, the airport asking you to be very patient.
We've had more than 1,480 flights canceled during the last 36 hours. So as you can imagine, a lot of those flights and passengers are resuming.
The parking garages at the airport are also now back open. That storm also being blamed for at least 4 deaths in Orange County alone.
And another man also died while riding out the storm in a yacht. Fox 35 anchor Ray Vieta is live in the Alert Center tonight with more. Ray.
There are at least 5 deaths reported from the storm in our area. A man and woman were electrocuted by a fallen power line in Conway in Orange County. Investigators say the 2 were in a car when they pulled over. The man got out to move a down power line from the roadway when he was electrocuted. The woman got out to help but was also electrocuted. There was a toddler in the car who was not hurt. Meanwhile, a man on a yacht during the storm in Brevard County also died. Cocoa police say this morning a woman called 911 saying her husband was in distress. Police say they responded with firefighters, went on that boat you see right there and performed CPR on the man as it was being battered by waves. The yacht even broke loose in the middle of it all and began to drift away. The man was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. Then tragedy struck on the turnpike in Ocoee. Florida Highway Patrol officers saw a 53-year-old man from Groveland died when he lost control and hit a tow truck. A person standing on the side of the road also died in that wreck. FHP still investigating that crash. In the Alert Center, I'm Ray Vieda, Fox 35 News.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Well, coming up next, of course, we expected Hurricane Nicole to flood the streets, but not many people expected several feet of sand as well.
And I've been shoveling for 2 days. We've got 3 foot of sand out there on the road that normally has nothing.
Why one neighbor we spoke with says the storm isn't the only thing to blame there.
Plus, a shocking discovery. Hear what Hurricane Nicole uncovered here in Florida. Plus,
people who live in this condo building in New Smyrna Beach have been asked to evacuate. This building is deemed unsafe. We have a look at some of the damage coming up.
And you are watching Fox 35 News at 10 on a Thursday night right here in Central Florida. We'll be right back.
Team USA begins their World Cup journey.
Wow! Magnificent!
USA versus Wales, November 21st on Fox.
Tropical storm Nicole bearing down.
Very, very strong winds.
Category 1 hurricane making landfall.
Our Fox 35 crews out there in the elements this morning.
Crashing over the railing.
Homes are starting to the ocean.
Miles of true devastation that it'll take years to recover.
we know you have damage. We know you are hurting, but we are here for you, and we're not going anywhere.
Fox 35 News is brought to you in part by Eyeglass World, the world's best way to buy glasses.
This is tracking the tropics. Nicole is now a tropical depression. It is moving away from our area, and it's also the only game in town, thankfully. There's nothing out there to track right now, but we're going to talk about the lasting impacts from Nicole to follow.
Oh, Bethune Beach, also in Volusia County, also pounded by the storm.
Fox 35's Adam Shadoff spotted a van stuck in a parking garage. Take a look at this. And this video shows just how serious those waves were last night. They were huge. Fox 35 storm team meteorologist Brooks Garner and Ian Cassette join us tonight.
I guess the good news, just like the last hurricane that went through, guys, we're going to have some great weather afterward for everybody who has to get outside and clean up.
It is something to look forward to this weekend, indeed. But, you know, I think the real revelation from Nicole, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier in our team coverage, is that the idea of the category system, the Saffir-Simpson scale, calling it a Cat 1 versus a Cat 2 or a Cat 3, and Nicole was only a Cat 1, but the damage resembled a much stronger system. I mean, home after home across Daytona Beach shores, Wilbur by the sea, compromised by the ocean, falling into the sea, a dozen hotels, 24 hotels. That's significant, and seeing the pictures, it really makes you think, you know, you can't judge as a person trying to decide what to do based on just the category about what you should do. Should you evacuate? Should you stay?
It always extends farther than that. It's not just the winds, it's the coastal flooding and the storm surge, and there was plenty more to this storm, and you had to consider the previous storm that came through as well.
Yeah, that's right, because Hurricane Ian did a number on those dunes to kind of set the stage to open up the coast and leave it essentially open for the sea to just surge into. I mean, there was no defense. Let me give you a case in point. Our max wind gust at Cape Canaveral was 79 miles an hour. At Playa Linda, 77 miles an hour. Melbourne, 73. Daytona, 70. And Sanford, 64. Sure, it was windy. Yes, we had a lot of power outages out there, but this is all consistent with the Category 1 hurricane. And if I told you that this was going to happen without mentioning anything else, you'd think, well, yeah, we'll ride this out, no problem at all. But the difference with this system is that it had this huge ocean surge from a 1,500-foot fetch over the Atlantic because it was once a subtropical storm. That also limited its total rainfall. We had about 3 to 6 inches of rain across the area, a couple spots getting about 8 inches, but for the most part, 3 to 6 inches in the hardest hit spots. And right now, Nicole has weakened to a tropical depression. But because it was once a subtropical depression, or a storm rather, it had winds of over 650 miles in its 2 to 3 times bigger than a typical Category 1 hurricane. It had a lot more power, arguably 2 to 3 times the power, plus the presence of the king tides. Those king tides are the higher than normal tides. It was the perfect storm for an absolute catastrophic situation there on the Atlantic coast. But this word we've been throwing around, these king tides, that's something that a lot of folks have asked, well, what exactly is that? Maybe you've heard it in the passing in conversation for those big tides, but why do they happen, and why do they happen this time of year? For more on that, let's go to meteorologist Ian Cassette. We've been studying this all day.
We have, and this is something we've been talking about this week. We've been talking about these astronomically high tides, not just a normal high tide. So what those are king tides, and these occur throughout the year, only a handful of times, but especially during this time of the year in November. So what is a king tide? Well, the tides are always related to the moon and the sun, and the moon's influence gravitationally, it pulls on the tides, and when we get a full moon, and when that full moon happens to coincide from when the moon is closer to the earth, it has a stronger pull, and with that stronger pull, what that does allow is a high tide that is higher than normal. So we have had high tides that are about a foot above where they usually are, and then when you add on to that a storm surge with a hurricane making landfall with land that had already been impacted by a previous storm, that is why we're watching, and we are so concerned about the coastal conditions, and that is exactly what we saw, Brooks, is that the coast took a beating from this storm.
Yeah, Ian, and the other thing is this was such a late season storm. We've never had an Atlantic hurricane this late in the season. Landfall. The last time we had anything hitting Florida as a hurricane this late in the season was Kate back in 1985, but it came from the Gulf side. So this was something we hadn't seen before, and it's also now king tide season. We typically get those king tides November, December, January. That's when they're strongest. That's when the tides are highest, and so it was just the combination of all those forces. So in short, yeah, you can't look at the category and say, it's just a Cat 1, it'll be fine, because they're seeing damage in Volusia County, for instance, of the likes they've never seen in recorded history as far as just the devastation on the coastline. All right, weather-wise for the next 7 days, we're going to see highs in the low 80s for Friday and Saturday. This weekend, Sunday's going to be beautiful, highs in the mid-70s. Gorgeous weather, just a couple of showers around. Next week, a few showers, but nothing bad at all, guys. It's going to be a cakewalk compared to what we've just endured for the last 48 hours, but it's also going to provide a very welcome opportunity for all the cleanup and recovery that lay ahead for folks there in the impact zones.
All right, thanks a lot, Brooks. Coming up next, Hurricane Nicole caused severe beach erosion up and down the East Coast.
Coming up next, we're going live to near where that storm landfall. Plus, here's a new argument for why you should win Christmas decorations. See why one city had to deal with a little bad timing. Coming up next.
Barktoberfest is here. This is my sweet girl, Maisie. But many dogs don't have a good home. Come out, adopt a dog, or bring your pup for free vaccinations and a wagtastic good time. Join the Fox 35 Care Force for Barktoberfest, November 20th at Lake Eola.
Welcome back. Hurricane Nicole made landfall just south of Vero Beach, bringing storm surge and erosion really up and down the coast.
And that's where we find Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell tonight. She joins us live. So, Brandy, how's it looking down there tonight?
Well, John and Luann, we were here live up until 4 a.m. last night as that storm battered the coast. And as a result, a lot of people woke up to see scenes just like this. This is the city's boardwalk. So if you guys take a look at this, you can see that it's not accessible right here because the concrete walkway has collapsed. All of the sand dune underneath it completely washed away. And that has happened along much of this beach. Even before landfall, we saw the sand dunes days before, and the next day we came in and it was completely gone. But really throughout this town, they did have a lot of wind, or heavy winds, I should say, yesterday. I know one of the highest gusts was around 68 last night, so it was a very active night and caused some power outages. The last check I saw, there was about 500 or so still out of power here in this county. But for now, folks here and the county and the leaders, they're just grateful that things weren't worse, but people still curious to see what happened. I did get a chance to speak to some people who stopped by to check out the conditions here. Here's what they said.
All right, thanks a lot, Brandy. And coming up in our next half hour, what a lot of people had to do to protect their homes and their cars, all of that from the flooding.
Plus, see how Nicole helped investigators unearth a shocking discovery.
And Nicole has moved on, but the traffic troubles are going to last a whole lot longer.
These were the places hardest hit by Nicole. Tomorrow, Jamie King is live sharing the stories of those who lived through it. Tomorrow morning on Good Day Orlando.
Take a look. Nicole has weakened and is now moving on from Florida to the East Coast. But it left parts of Florida's East Coast in shambles. Dozens of buildings are now deemed unsafe and unlivable in Volusia County alone. This drone video shows several homes on the verge of collapsing right into the ocean.
That video is so unbelievable.
Yeah.
Condo residents over in New Smyrna Beach were also told to get out. Those buildings have been also deemed to be unsafe.
Yeah, part of them already crumbling into the ocean. Let's get out to Fox 35's Christy Kern. She is joining us live with the Fox 35 Storm Team Thunder truck tonight. So, Christy, you've been driving around tonight looking at the damage. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, Luann, Sean, we started at one of those condo buildings, but it wasn't holding up really well. That's why we're not there anymore. The ground that we were standing on was actually starting to shake as the waves were getting larger and starting to crash into the ground below us. So we've been driving around instead and taking a look at some of the damage. We started at New Smyrna Beach, and we've since made our way up to Daytona Shores Beach. So take a look at the road here. There's not a lot of people on the road, and that's because Volusia County has declared a curfew until tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. So technically these roads are closed and people are pretty much heeding those warnings.
All right, a sad holiday sight in Altamont Springs. Take a look at this one. That is the Christmas tree in Cranes Roost Park. The winds from Nicole toppled the 60-foot tall tree this morning. But get this, the crews had just put it up on Tuesday, so it made it 2 days this time. Hopefully not to the tree. Hopefully too many of the ornaments didn't break. Hopefully the lights all work because they have the big tree lighting coming up on December the 6th. So Lou, they got to get it picked up.
Yeah, they got to get that thing upright.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Coming up next here on Fox 35, Nicole devastated Daytona Beach shores.
Yeah, some backyards are now out in the Atlantic. So how exactly do you rebuild after a storm like this? We're going to show you what it looks like coming up next.
And ahead on the News Edge at 11 o'clock, it's an event that brings in nearly 100,000 people a day. See what effects this storm has had on this weekend's Electric Daisy Carnival in Orlando. And we are saving you some money tonight with our Fox 35 Pump Patrol. Gas is $3.34 a gallon at the Circle K on Dean Road and Lake Underhill Road in Orlando. You're watching Fox 35 News at 10. Marie, thank you. And Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner and Ian Cassette are back with us tonight.
All right, so guys, it's gone. Thank goodness, right? So everybody's wondering what comes next. What do you got for us?
Oh, goodness. Well, this is it, we hope, for the 2022 hurricane season. You know, the hurricane season ends at the end of this month, and this is the second latest hurricane to ever make landfall in Florida. We had Kate back in 1985. That came in from the Gulf side, so this was unprecedented as far as the way it came in. Let's take a look at the latest on this thing. It's now a tropical depression. It came in from the Atlantic side, and now it's heading up into Georgia and the Carolinas. Winds down to 35 miles per hour, and by this time tomorrow night, as far as a distinguishable entity, that is being Nicole, it will no longer exist. It's going to get pulled in and absorbed by a front, but it'll still bring some heavy rain and some tornadoes to parts of the southeast. Now, that said, we were talking about the track. There was another thing about Nicole that definitely raised some eyebrows because it had an uncanny resemblance to another active year. And if you're in Brevard County, you probably know what I'm talking about. 2004, the year with Charlie and with Gene. For more on that, let's go to meteorologist Ian Cassette, because Ian, this is a little almost creepy.
It's just really bizarre. It's a very strange year. I mean, November, getting a hurricane. These were the two paths of Ian. We had Ian that made landfall in a very similar place, actually the exact same place as Charlie in 2004, and Nicole, which we have just obviously had, November storm going across southeastern Florida. Well, this is 2004. We also have Charlie compared to Gene. You remember Gene? Very strong storm across the southeast Florida coastline, the Treasure Coast. Both of these storms were 43 days apart. And same thing with Ian and Nicole, 43 days apart. Weird stuff. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just more of a coincidence, but something to definitely look at, that we always look at previous seasons. It's easy to compare, but man, Brooks, extremely strange here.
I mean, they took the same path.
Yeah.
Same path, both 43 days apart. It's uncanny stuff. I mean, there's no science to it. It's just coincidence. But hey, thankfully, considering how strong Nicole was, it didn't have the category power as far as its wind punch that Gene did. That was the Cat 3 that came in. That did a number. number. That said, this storm, Nicole, this hurricane was an excellent example at how you cannot measure the power of a hurricane based only on the category. There's a lot of talk about it's just a category 1, no real problems. We've ridden those out before. But obviously, the damage done to the coast was, as officials there are saying in Volusia County, the most extensive they've ever seen on record to the structures located along the coast. Worst one ever. So clearly, the Saffir-Simpson scale of calling it a Cat 1 is insufficient to describe the power of it. And that then leaves homeowners and anybody who needs to prepare for it potentially unprepared for the appropriate actions needed to stave off the impacts from that system, because there's just the Saffir-Simpson scale gives you just a little window. Yeah, winds right now about 30 miles per hour in gusts. Max gusts from Nicole reached about 79 to 80 miles an hour. So that's pretty typical stuff, kind of pedestrian, arguably, for a Category 1. And not like we're rooting for it to be any stronger, but considering the damage seen on the coast, it's almost hard to believe that was it for the winds. In fact, like her 2012, this storm's power was from its broad reach of the ocean. It was really an ocean storm. It was the storm surge. It was the astronomically high tides. It was the swell. It was how that all came together and caused that extensive erosion here along our shores. So yeah, I mean, the idea, just keep this in mind for future seasons. If you live along the beach, you're trying to decide if you stay or go, just think, okay, it's only a Cat 1, but what else is it packing? What's the storm surge going to look like? What are the tides going to look like? Well, what about the next 3 days? Let's lighten it up here as we head toward the weekend. For tomorrow, 82 degrees. There is a 20% chance for a few afternoon showers. Maybe a rumble of thunder as one of the last bands of Nicole pulls out. And there may be a little bit of gusty wind with that, about 30 miles an hour. Saturday will be dry, 82. Sunday, 76. Just a beautiful day. Could be a couple of late sprinkles, maybe some showers in the afternoon. But this weekend's going to be a great weekend to do anything outside. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us are going to be outside doing the cleanup after the storm and possibly the recovery with all of the structures impacted on the beaches. We just had the last big high tide at 9:10 p.m. So from here on out, the tides won't be as high, and the storm surge is falling, and the waves are falling. So things along the beaches should get better. Not a great beach weekend, obviously. It's just a mess down there. Just avoid the beaches locally here. 82 degrees on Tuesday, 83 Wednesday, 80 on Thursday. A pretty nice week, though, lay ahead. All right, back to you, John, Luann.
We could use some good weather, right?
Yeah,
we all need a little bit of a break. Well, coming up next on Fox 35 News at 10, Hanging 10 in the heart of downtown, where this surfer was spotted. Coming up.
Tropical storm Nicole bearing down.
Very, very strong winds.
Category 1 hurricane making landfall.
Our Fox 35 crews out there in the elements this morning.
Crashing over the railing.
Homes are starting to fall into the ocean.
Miles of true devastation that it'll take years to recover.
We know you have damage. We know you are hurting, but we are here for you, and we're not going anywhere.
Fox 35 weather, brought to you in part by the Orlando Sentinel.
Welcome back. Across Florida tonight, in Martin County, Hurricane Nicole unearthed part of a Native American burial ground. Deputies posted these pictures to their Facebook page. They say after the storm, they found remains of 6 bodies along Hutchinson Island. Deputies and FWC officers are carefully removing the bones. They say they're going to send them to the medical examiner's office before they go to the state.
Also, new video tonight. A surfer was spotted paddling through the streets of St. Augustine. You see him right there, circled in yellow, right down the middle of the road. Floodwaters left a few cars submerged there, so this guy made the most of it, apparently. Here he comes again. He's commuting around town on his longboard. So, Luann, he does what you got to do,
Whatever works. Canoe, paddleboard.
You're not going to walk through there. You're not going to drive through that. You're going to surf. I love it.
Well, we want to update you now on the day's top stories.
We start with Fox 35's Valerie Boy. Val.
Hey there. Well, beautiful beachfront homes are collapsing along Wilbur by the sea. I'm Valerie Boy. And all about that story.
Well, the storm is now rolling into Georgia, bringing with it a tornado and a flood threat into that state and the Carolinas. But for us, conditions will be improving. That said, we've got a weekend laying ahead. I'll show you the latest forecast there and what we can expect for the next 7 days.
The Fox 35 News app is driven by Toyota of Orlando and Toyota of Claremont.